So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
Mind, just in your mind, in your mind, look back at everything that we saw about mind, everything we saw about spirit, about soul, principle, life. You see that, say, taking that presentation of mind, we came out from the whole of mind, and at every point along that way, we saw something further about the wholeness of that whole, didn't we? So we took the whole of mind, and we saw something further about that wholeness of mind, and we went from level to level to level till we had all levels, and we went through those levels by going through the four. And when we finished, we really had this sense of holism. You see? Why? Because every part, so-called, and though we know now that they are not parts, but every part, so-called, carried out the general character of the whole, right? This is the sense of holism, of seeing the whole, but also seeing the specifics within the whole, you see? Seeing the specific truth within the whole of mind would be to see mind in a certain specific way at every one of those points of intersection. And all together bringing out the great wholeness of mind, of the synonymous term mind and its ideas. So we saw the whole of mind in its wholeness, in its holism. You see that this is what we mean by form. We have looked somehow at the form of mind, the gestalt of mind. If that form of mind wasn't of form, didn't have gestalt, we might find something there, say, about spirit, or about soul, or about the word generally. But suddenly we would come along and see something that is not really telling us something about mind, but about the word, or about science, or whatever. But every part, so-called, carries out the general character of the whole. And you know, there's something within us that knows that. Isn't that terrific? There is some kind of a principle of holism within us, a gestalt principle within us that knows at once when something is not holistic, when it doesn't carry out the general character of the whole. So we are, in a way, stamped with this principle of holism. I always think of, it's like seeing a picture of a giraffe with a trunk, with an elephant's trunk on it. That you know at once that this is not right. It's not right. You see, the whole, with all the parts of that whole don't carry out the general character of it. There's an inconsistency there. Something is not coherent. It doesn't hang together. It doesn't hold together. So truth is that which is the standard that assures that everything in being has this form, has the form of truth, has form, that mind has form. And we've gotten the first great touch of that form when we have taken now that synonymous term and its ideas, mind. We begin to see, and it's that which somehow satisfies us and makes us feel, we feel somehow whole when we see the wholeness of mind, or when we see the wholeness of spirit. We're ill at ease if something doesn't fit that consistency, that coherency, you see, because we have that principle of wholeness within ourselves, within our makeup. It makes us feel unfinished, that something is unfinished, without seeing that the complete wholeness of the whole, no matter what that whole is. Mind, the whole of mind, the whole of spirit and its ideas, the whole of soul and its ideas, of life, of truth. And so we would feel even unfinished, and so it is, if we don't go on to love. If something in us wants to stay with truth and say, this is the whole. Well, yes, truth tells us what the whole is. But truth tells us through 7 subtones in that 6th day of creation that that whole must also be love. So even though we're at the 6th, the 7th is there by implication. It is there by a hint, a terrific, great hint that the 6th day has 7 subtones, right? Mm-hmm. That final subtone of love having all to do with the motherhood and womanhood and the highest sense of man, of what man is. So again, as we move from whole to whole, we're moving from the whole of mind to the whole of spirit, the whole of soul, principle, life, truth, and love, until we have then the whole of the word order. You see, in the ascending way, we move from whole to whole, say then to a greater whole, you see. So we have in the word order sense of the whole of mind, the whole of spirit, the whole of soul, principle, life, truth, and love. And then we see, oh, but that forms a greater whole, the whole of the word, you see. And then we become aware of the Christ, the whole of the Christ, the wholeness of that Christ order, the wholeness of the order of Christianity, the wholeness of the order of science. Then we reach some kind of a threshold that says those 4 form an even further wholeness, the whole. The wholeness of the level of Christian Science. And that is a whole. So on that ascending way, it's an inductive way where we are adding, so to say, adding what seem to be parts, and what we find is that we reach a threshold where we see that those parts are not parts, they form a whole, they are holistic themselves. So we keep building a greater and greater understanding of what the whole is. From Christian Science to absolute Christian Science to divine science to science itself, till we see the whole itself. The whole. So the whole of science itself includes the further wholes of divine science, absolute Christian Science, Christian Science. I don't know, I'm just trying to give you illustrations of the fact that there really are no parts, there are only wholes. So how do we experience this when we come, strictly speaking, to the level of Christian Science, and we feel that this terrific sense of truth being the whole, and that whole being the standard, and that standard being the ideal, of the divine self-consciousness of being conscious of itself, knowing itself as the whole. How does that break in on the human? It comes as health. Here we get now the gifts of the grace of truth, how truth comes to us. We have that sixth idea, that sixth term really in the third degree of wisdom, purity, spiritual understanding, spiritual power, love, health. Health. And so what is health? It's wholeness, isn't it? That insofar as we are conscious of what the divine self-consciousness is conscious of, itself as being the whole, that as we are conscious of the divine self-claiming of truth, divine self-affirming of truth, truth ever at work as its own idea of itself, all penetrating. You see, there isn't a single place, a single space where truth is not truth. Our truth is absolutely verifying, checking, absolutely scanning. It scans the whole of being. It scans all that being is. That being that life has shown us is being scanned by the Christ truth to see, is it whole? Is it true? Does it measure up to the divine standard? Does it measure up to that standard of mind, spirit, soul, principle, life, truth, love? Everything must measure up to the divine standard of mind, spirit, soul, principle, life, truth, and love. Every experience, every circumstance, every case, every question, absolutely everything, you see, must meet that divine standard. Divine standard, say, of the word order. So, as that breaks in on us, it comes as health. It wants to bring that health to everything, brings it right into the human consciousness and makes us aware that there is a standard. There is a standard of wholeness. There is an ideal in being. That the possibility of having a standard in absolutely everything is not just a possibility, it's the fact. It's factual. And truth comes to us and it brings the light of truth to every situation. Brings the sevenfold light to everything. This is what is meant by revelation of truth. That truth will not just bring the light of mind or the light of spirit or the light of soul to the situation, but the full light of truth.
The prism?
The prism, yes, The outcome of putting that infinite light of God through the prism is the sevenfold light of truth. Yes, yeah. So it brings that to everything. Can't just have a part of that light, a part of that nature being accentuated, but everything is accentuated in that light of truth. Looking now at the Word, of course, we are in Christian Science at the point of A, and we see that truth breaks in not only as the light of truth, but as the voice of truth. This is the voice within our consciousness. It's truth speaking and saying something within our consciousness, that because the whole idea of truth, the whole realm of truth itself, is the realm of the divine self-claiming, self-affirming of truth. And every idea claims truth. Every idea reflects truth. So then we see that every idea being a whole truth, claims truth, affirms truth. How do we experience that profound claiming and exclaiming and affirming of truth and asserting of the truth? We hear it in consciousness because this is the form, the state, the nature of the divine self-consciousness, truth declaring itself to itself as what it is. And that breaks in on the human consciousness as the voice of truth. The voice of truth brings us the declaration of truth in the Word. And the Christ says, and this truth that is coming to you and breaking in really on the whole world, as we said, breaking in individually, collectively, universally, on all the sciences, all the disciplines, on everything, comes in the form of the Christ that partakes of the nature of the Christ in the calculus. Namely, it comes in an unerring way. It's not possible to have a mistake in that wholeness. There's not a mistake possible in that wholeness. And so truth is faultless. Comes to us as the faultlessness of truth. Truth being faultless, it's impossible that there could be an error in this wholeness. There's no flaw, no fault, no debt, if you want to say. That's what that sixth statement of the Lord's Prayer means. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It's that really there's no debt, there's nothing owing there, nothing missing there. It's a faultless state of being, an unerring state of being. And so truth comes to the human consciousness in all its unerringness and wants to correct everything that seems not to be in line with the truth. This is going on everywhere. At every moment, everywhere, it is this fact that is working, this A that is working on the D, you see, working on the claims of the D, which we'll see in a moment. So as the Christ in A, it is directing everything to bring out the right solution. Everything is being guided to bring out the right solution. Even though we may not see it, we may not recognize it, we may not acknowledge it, that the right solution is being brought forth. And as truth brings out the right solution, at the point of the Christ, we see the result of that, the outcome of that in Christianity, is that truth is effectual. It has an effect, we could say effective, but the term that the textbook uses is effectual. That means it has an effect that is desired, the desired effect, the right effect, not just any effect. So it is effectual. It brings out the right result. It brings out the faultlessness of every question. A solution according to truth will bring out the faultlessness of being. It brings to us our true manhood. So here you have the coming in of that term man, really for the first time. The man of the sixth day of creation, of course, is a symbol for wholeness, as being the pinnacle of the whole of creation. That sixth day being the final day of creation, and its great climax being true manhood, which culminates in true womanhood. So that begins to break in on us. we begin to acknowledge, as the whole world begins to acknowledge the rights of man. Man has rights. This is why we see great overturnings in the world, struggles between nations and countries that want to suppress the rights of man, to suppress the rights of woman, you see. And a great uprising now coming in, I think, with the conclusion of the 6,000-year period and continuing on into our present day, into the 7,000-year period. The demand, the command, the demand to give man his rights, to set him free. All of that is coming in. The rights of woman. You perhaps are familiar with the many struggles and the many, many developments in that way that have taken place over the last recent years, how women in these very oppressed countries are beginning to be freed, to become free, to take possession of their manhood, of their highest manhood as womanhood. It's beautiful. I went to the storage facility for the foundation and for the tapes and everything the other day, and there's a fellow there that every time I go, we start talking, and it literally, within, I would say, 2 minutes, we're talking about true womanhood. This man loves true womanhood, and the conversation immediately goes true womanhood. He was telling me, about his respect for women, and he said, I know that, I see that here, I see these women come in, they drive in with their trucks, they have their 3 kids in the truck, they get out, they heft up the big things of big cartons and pieces of furniture and haul them up to to their storage unit and come back down, and then they say, well, I got to get the kids to school now and get off to work. He said, I know that women are the stronger sex. He said, I know that they are going to really come into their own. And he's talking about qualities, always talking to me about the qualities of true womanhood. And I've watched this man over about 5 or 6 years now, grow more and more beautiful. He just has grown so beautiful. And I think it's because he has this innate acknowledgement of what true womanhood is. Somehow he has been touched by that, and it has changed his life. It's a strange thing. You wouldn't expect it. This is a man who just takes care of the storage units. But I love to go there. I love, if I have time, to take 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes talking to him about these beautiful things, because we always wind up talking about science. Even though he knows nothing about science, we're talking about science. And he is a beautiful example of the acknowledgement of manhood, of true manhood, which at its highest is true womanhood. This is breaking in. It's breaking in. The truth about true manhood is breaking in, and the rights of man. And we see this really going on all over the world. All over the world. It has nothing to do with, what do you want to say, men and women, gender, yes. But with something that is in every man. And every man is whole, and therefore every man has his womanhood. And every woman, so-called, is whole. She has her womanhood and her manhood, both. We all have both. And that gives us our dominion, where we don't feel that there's a stronger sex and a weaker sex, and that one has to rely on the other, or that one has to be in servitude to the other. It's a wholeness. And truth is breaking in on consciousness and will cause every individual to realize his or her wholeness as man. That's our dominion, isn't it? That's the dominion of truth. And so when science looks at everything there in the A of Christian Science, where science says, well, I give a little bit higher connotation to it, you see that really what's happening is that I'm breaking in on your consciousness to establish the idea within you. I establish that idea, the idea of truth. That's the office of truth, to establish it within us. I bring wholeness to everything within the human condition. I'm bringing divine justice, that sense of divine justice. Justice means the quality of being right or correct. You see, there's something within man, within the best of us, that wants that and is demanding it more and more, demanding the rights of man, demanding even the rights of everything, every creature. You have it going on with every creature, and so you see this as you have in that sixth day of creation, the brotherhood of man. You see the higher protecting the lower. What is that wonderful statement in the, I think it's Truth is Truth, about the brotherhood of man? The rich in spirit help the poor in one grand brotherhood, each seeking his own and another's good. And you see that at all points coming forward in our universe. Even the rights of those that can't speak for themselves, and animals and children and so forth, that there is this demand for justice, for the divinely right thing to be done, the divinely correct thing to be done, that there be no injustice. Yeah. That's truth at work.